Hello, Susan Flory here, genuinely hoping that this finds you safe and well, coping. I am sticking to plan on the big middle, no matter the dystopian reality of now. That plan is to share another of my interviews with longevity superstars, done for the Longevity Forum at their flagship event here in London a few months ago. For now, I'm keeping this a virus-free zone. There is more than enough essential daily listening and learning to do from official and trusted media sources, as well as qualified professionals, all offering excellent psychological and emotional support and coping strategies as we all brace for what's next. So, to my interview with longevity legend Dr. Nir Barzilai, director of the Institute for Aging Research at New York's Albert Einstein College of Medicine, discoverer of the first longevity gene in humans. We talk about his work to realize the promise of targeting aging with therapeutics, arresting it, reversing it, instead of treating the many specific diseases related to it. You run the world's biggest center for the study of the biology of aging, Nir. What are you up to now that we can all get excited about?
So, the thing that we have to realize is that aging has a biology, we can see it. But what many of us don't know is this biology can be targeted. Aging can be delayed, aging can be stopped, aging can be reversed in several ways, and we're going to make it more effectively in the future. So my institute is basically looking at the major hallmarks of aging and trying to understand the mechanism and design drugs that will be able to target aging and by that stop age-related diseases. Aging drives diseases. If we'll target aging, we'll prevent all diseases of aging.
The thing is, for the general public that is completely ignorant of what's going on in this realm, you get people saying, oh, that's mucking around with Mother Nature. Stay away from that.
Well, if this is, there are a few issues here. First of all, if this is the case, we've been doing it all along. Life expectancy throughout history until the 1900s was like 25 to 35. We've done better, and indeed, we got to the age where now we're called elderly, right? But we have done it already. The problem now is that those elderly, after the age of 60, start to accumulating age-related diseases that we didn't really experience before because of our success. And they have the first disease, and maybe it's not a pleasant disease, and there's a treatment that might not be pleasant either, and then a second disease, a third disease. So now we have 3 diseases and 3 treatments that have side effects and antagonistic to each other, and this doesn't have to happen. Because actually, just as we can lower cholesterol or blood pressure, we can also stop the process of aging and by that move everything away.
So what specifically are you working on to stop the process?
We're doing several things, but there are 2 important issues that I presented today. One is the fact that continuing on this example of cholesterol and blood pressure that are, we treat them in order to prevent heart disease and stroke. What are the biomarkers that we follow to show that we can actually target aging? That has been a unique problem that we're solving now together with big data and artificial intelligence. And we're making progress so that we can target aging and actually look if we're making an impact.
And can this be done at an early age? Child, teenager, not until we see the walking wounded, for lack of a better phrase, of 60 plus, and you start to pile on inflammatory disease, chronic diseases of aging, age-related disease.
Aging starts intrauterine, okay? And sometimes there's a genetic component that makes you age slow or fast. But what is the appropriate age to target? We're going to figure it out. I think what we know that we have to take into account now is that it's never too late to target aging. So, and we'll start there. will start at the age of 65, but that doesn't mean that we cannot do it before. Also, there might be different stages and therefore different treatment in different decades of life. So, for example, we have a drug that's called senolytic that kills aging cells because they do harm, and we don't accumulate them at our age. We accumulate them more later. So maybe that's a treatment later on. But there's another drug I'll talk about, metformin, that maybe the right time to take it is when you're 50 years old.
And what would it do? Would it target the senescent zombie cells? Or is it just lowering your blood glucose
Well,
levels?
metformin has some effect on senescence, but the second thing I talked about was the challenge that aging is not considered a target or an indication in the United States, the Food and Drug Administration, or any other organization in the world that does regulation. And this is a major obstacle because if we have a drug and it's not approved, then the healthcare provider doesn't have to pay for it. And if the healthcare provider doesn't pay for this, the pharmaceuticals are not going to jump in and develop drugs, better drugs, combination of drugs to really make an impact.
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? We have to get the political pitch right, and we're not there yet because the FDA and other regulators around the world are not going to step up and allow these things to be delivered to the masses because they're frightened of what the ramifications are of some of these things.
I think the FDA and regulation are just part of the problem. It starts more with the politicians. And the politicians don't really understand that what we're talking about is the economy, that we're talking about really longevity dividend. We're talking of the cost of if we delay age-related disease modestly, even 2 to 3 years, what is going to be the impact on the economy? In the United States is trillions and trillions of dollars. In fact, we cannot afford not to do that, but the politicians haven't clicked on that.
Well, as you were saying in your keynote, we need to adapt our language to make sure we're talking about extending health span and always frame it against a longevity dividend. So the policymakers can say, oh, saving money, I can sell that.
Exactly. You said it better than me. Exactly what I meant.
That's very kind of you. In your keynote, you said there were 3 challenges to solve in the next few years. The theme of this year's forum is Longevity 2030. What we need to see, the small steps, the medium steps, the big steps, to have a little taste, a little slice of the longevity dividend by 2030?
2030 is long enough. I think we will see. I think we'll see the dividend. Look, from a science perspective, we have things like giving metformin that maybe has this effect of 2-3 years. It's a generic drug that's very cheap, so nobody's going to be upset about the cost for taking that if we prevent disease by 2-3 years.
But is that, though, just again, sorry, but to pick up, I wasn't sure what you were saying about mighty metformin. Is it just to lower blood sugar levels?
Oh, no, it has nothing to do with blood, or not mainly with blood sugar.
Because it's normally pre-diabetes, isn't it?
No, it's diabetic. It's actually give to diabetic. Unfortunately, only 3% of pre-diabetic are on metformin. But metformin is one of those drugs that when you looked at every major disease, people on metformin have much less of it, like 30% less of it. I'm talking about cardiovascular disease and cancers and Alzheimer's and mortality even.
And this is from your laboratory?
No. This is studies that have been done in the last, metformin has been around 60 years. And those studies have been done in the last 30 years and we're followed up. So the experiment is already done. We just need to do it in the same people to show that in the same people we're going just to move health span by several years.
So you need to show that it can be repurposed, show the FDA and other regulators that it can be repurposed for the delay of age-related diseases.
Correct.
What do you see over the horizon from where you are? You run the world's biggest center for the study of the biology of aging. What should we be really excited about?
That's the second part. So I said there are some low-hanging fruit. There are drugs that are in human use that need to be repurposed and can be very dramatically influential. But to be simple, I gave the example of a sperm of a 70-year-old and an egg of a 50-year-old woman. That the sperm can fertilize this egg and basically, we have a baby on the way. And the baby is really a cluster of cells that are dividing. And at this stage, those clusters of cells do not remember anymore the age of the parents. They erase them. They start from zero, okay? We don't accumulate all the longevity in our family.
Right.
So we figured out how to do it in this example. And now we're working on how do we do it during life for the rest of the body. How can we erase the scratches of aging and basically stay young or rejuvenate often?
But we're a long way from seeing that rolled out in any sort of a trial involving humans, aren't we?
We are not far off from seeing applications in humans. There are biotechs that are doing that. So I'll give you an example. I'm involved with a venture capital that's called Life Biosciences, and one of our companies, Iduna, is really doing the erasing the aging from optic nerve that was crushed in mice in order to rejuvenate the nerve. And they do rejuvenate the nerve. And in fact, it's not only the nerve. Where they give it to animals that have a model of glaucoma, it actually cures the glaucoma. In other words, we're going to see specific indication now. It's not the whole body, but it's starting to experiment with this idea very soon. And I'm talking about a year or two.
So that's another good sell, easy sell to the public. If you can attack glaucoma or if you can manage to reverse macular degeneration, this is the way to actually get the public on board.
Right, but this is the challenge for biotechs in our area. Aging there's no indication yet, right? At least for the next 5 years until we're done with the study. And biotechs and venture capital don't have that much of a long way to wait. So we need to find those indications, and those indications are also the one that will fund our ultimate goal, which is to target aging, right? So we are finding those indications. On the other hand, I showed an example today of a drug that's repurposed from human studies. It's called an IGF receptor antibody. And the problem with that, we know that we increase the health span of animals and they live longer, but we cannot find a purpose for this drug now. We don't have an indication of where it will fit back.
Do you mean a purpose that would be palatable to the FDA, or?
Right, that is a current indication, just like the glaucoma or the macular degeneration or something like that. We don't have it now. And so we have to put it on back burner until there is going to be actually maybe an indication, and then you can just do the study to show that it works.
Is that intrinsic growth hormone?
Yes,
intrinsic growth
but
factor?
What we need, right? It's insulin-like growth factor 1, that is a growth hormone, really, much more than an insulin. And what we do is we block the receptors, because if you have less growth, you can do better repair. So if we stop that, we have benefits of longevity. In fact, I have a centenarian study. I have 700 centenarians and their families in my study. And the most striking thing is that they have mutations, functional mutation in this growth hormone axis, the growth hormone, the IGF, its receptor. So this is a really good target for us that we cannot realize, at least now.
A non-science question. How do we convince people feeling overwhelmed by the climate crisis, globalization, the general precarity these days of life and work, to give even a small hoot about how to improve their chances of living healthy for longer?
But on the individual level, okay, all the elderly want to be healthy. Okay, I don't think this is, if you ask the public, it's unfair question. It's like asking them, why are we treating any one of your diseases? Because there's climate change. Okay, for the individual, we worked hard throughout our lives. We are still working hard. We might even work longer than that. It's not fair to say, you don't deserve better health. We want you to get sick and die. So on an individual level, I don't see the problem. Yet, what you're asking is not unusual, and we're asked. And part of the answer is those longevity dividend. It's actually going to be better for the economy. And then there's other answers that we're dealing with them now that are going to be developed in parallel. And by the way, all of it is in parallel. Whether retirement age should change, whether, for example, not everybody retires, they keep working. So should they get Social Security? Why should they if they're working? On the other hand, if people are not working, getting Social Security, it's not right not to pay the ones who are working. There are lots of issues that have to be weighed and discussed on a social level, and retirement age and all that, in order to come together. But let me tell you, in my mind, I don't think about retirement, and very few professors are thinking about retirements. We all pretty much work as long as our brain works, and it's usually to the 80s. So retirement is not something that I really think about, although I'm 64 and it's pretty much the age. This is ridiculous.
That was the old one. We were getting rid of that model of life, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's multi-stage now. We don't just retire and expire soon after we retire.
Right.
Some of the biggest brains in the longevity space, science, social scientists, are here at the forum. How are you enjoying it?
Oh, that's terrific. Look, those meetings are becoming bigger and bigger. We get people we didn't used to get before. We get the investors who realize, oops, that's the next stage. We should be ready. We get more of the news people to that. We get people who are doing podcasts to be here. We get more lay people who are coming in. And in other words, what I'm telling you is that there is a wave. Okay, we're catching a wave.
Yeah, I liked how you phrased it in your keynote. You said, we're catching a wave now. You wouldn't have thought 10 years ago, would you, that we'd be here by now, where it's going mainstream?
Well, yes, I did.
Did you?
Yes, I did. I think 10 years ago is when we moved from hope. When I started this research, it was 30 years ago. But when we moved 10 years ago, it was from hope to promise. And now it's about realizing the promise. And I said also something that I heard not long ago. It's about Bill Gates said that we are overestimating what we can achieve in 2 years, which I always did, and underestimating what we can achieve in 10 years. And I think, yes, the timeline is very frustrating to us. We still don't get it, why people don't get it. but it's a big wave that will turn into tsunami. I don't know exactly when, but it will turn into tsunami. And people will benefit from that, and government will benefit for it, and it'll change how people age and die.
It's definitely the burning issue of our times, along with climate change.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Just fascinating speaking with you. Nir Barzilai, founding director of the Institute for Aging at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York. Again, thank you.
Pleasure.
Next up, my Longevity Forum interview with Dr. Linda Fried, Dean of the Malman School of Public Health at Columbia University. She says designing our new life stage, those extra years we're getting in what I call the big middle, is the design opportunity of the century. This global pandemic certainly adds an unexpected design element to that mix. Until then, stay home, stay well, stay kind. enjoy tuning into the sounds of nature, reclaiming our public spaces. I truly don't know what I would do without my garden. Do let me know how you're going, Susan at susanflory.com. And as ever, thanks for listening. Until next time.